Alright, right off the bat, my research topic was municipal water supplies in Forrest County. So my objective was to understand and analyze the municipal water supply system, specifically focusing on Forrest County. This is basically everything under the moon on how water gets to our faucets. My topic was originally over the Gulf Coast, but after talking to Dr. Bass, we agreed it was more interesting, for me at least, to do the Hattiesburg area, just because that's the campus I'm on. With that, and being from Texas, I just have no correlation to the coast. I'm just mentioning that because I don't know if y'all looked at who had what for the assignments, but on Canvas it says Gulf Coast, and I wanted to make it clear that I switched so there was no confusion. For my paper and research, I asked questions everywhere from the basic knowledge of what aquifers and the municipal water supply systems are, and discussed all the way down to what are the current conditions of these aquifers that support Forrest County and what that means for us. So, to start off, my methodology. I use secondary source research methods for all my data collection. I split my data collection up into two sections because when I say library research, although that too was found on the internet, it was through all of the University of Southern Mississippi's databases. That's where I found academic texts, and other research papers that I read. The online research was a lot of me typing my questions into Google and finding reliable websites to flesh out background information. These websites were mainly national and local government records to find the available statistics on water consumption. For my map, I used good old ArcGIS. I input previous data that I had from Geography 210 or 217, those classes that I took forever ago, but I still had these on file. That was just to get the state and county outlines. After that, I went on to plot new points, basing everything off of the data table that I've shown on the side. This is mainly to state where the exact locations the suppliers are in which Forrest County is getting their water from, so the municipality of it. I have a picture of my map on a later slide, and then you'll see that I also took the people serviced per county, and they're portrayed as graduated dots to make the impact of location, and with that, quantity of service known for each one. Now I'm going to get into everything, starting with the basics of what municipal water supply is. Municipal water supplies are all the pipes, main, and/or structures owned and maintained by the local government authorities that have the capacity to provide water to a community or a proposed development. That's just a lot of words to basically say a public water supply. Why I have public in quotes is because the shortened version can be misleading because sometimes they can also be privately owned. The functions of municipal water supply companies extend to the storing, transmission, treatment, and distribution of water for private, public, and government use. In my research, I go a little more in depth about the treatment of the water because it is a main and everyday, really every hour, minute practice that Forrest County goes through to make sure the water is safe for human use and consumption. Municipal water supplies are evaluated based on the quantity and quality of water. This is where Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, comes in. They have established concrete, standardized methods of determining water quality and assessing if water is safe for human consumption. This is all within the 1974 Safe Drinking Water Act. The Public Water Systems Supervision Program evaluates the quality of drinking water. This happens in one of two ways. First, there is the maximum contaminant levels, which place a limit on the amount of contaminants that drinking water can contain to deem it safe for human consumption. The second one is treatment techniques. This involves employing specific processes within the public water supply system to help control the level of contaminants like bacteria and viruses. The EPA has also created a categorization system to describe public water sources. A community water system represents a public water source that supplies water to the same population year-round. In contrast, a non-transient, non-community water system is a public water source that supplies water to at least 25 of the same people for at least 6 months out of the year. The last category is transient, non-community water system. This is a combination of the previous two types. This is a public water source that is supplied to a place where people do not stay for extended periods, for instance, a campsite. Next, aquifers are super important to understanding municipal water supplies because all in all, this is where the physical geography plays a part. The definition of an aquifer is pretty straightforward and is described as a natural storage system for groundwater. Aquifers are made up of porous rock or sediment and then the groundwater that seeps through when it rains. This groundwater is all the precipitation that is drained and trapped into the empty spaces underground. Eventually, it's what comes out the end of your faucet. The southern half of Mississippi is underlain by a series of irregular and locally lenticular sand and clay beds from the Miocene age. These beds are classified as a Miocene aquifer and are further subdivided into the Pascagoula Formation, Hattiesburg Formation, and Catahoula Sandstone. Forrest County is specifically supplied in majority by the Miocene Catahoula aquifer. This groundwater held within Miocene aquifers is recharged by rainfall directly by the outcrops. But this is where recharging may also occur through infiltration from overlying surface deposits and inner aquifer movement through the clay and silt beds that separate the sand units. The discharge is directed towards the Gulf of Mexico. With that, the principal sources of groundwater in the area stem from the sands beneath the Catahoula Formation. The Catahoula Formation contains a thick water-bearing sand near the base of the formation and two other sands higher up. Between and within the sands is clay that varies in thickness and surface area. The Catahoula aquifer can be further broken down into lower, middle, and upper aquifers depending from which layer of sand or clay the water is withdrawn. In the Laurel area, most public supply and industrial withdrawal is from the lower and middle aquifers. In the Hattiesburg area, most water withdrawal is from the middle and upper aquifers. Within Forrest County, but south of Hattiesburg, water is available from sand zones in the overlying Hattiesburg and Pascagoula formations, and the Catahoula aquifers are not really widely pumped. Wells associated with these aquifers are typically shallow, meaning around 100 to 1,000 feet deep, but the wells still yield significant volumes of water. When researching the total current volume and discharge rates of the Catahoula and Hattiesburg aquifers, there's very little public information anywhere, but I did find an interactive map through the National Groundwater Monitoring Network, and it shows specific water level data for certain public water systems. Like the one that I plotted on my map that you'll see a little bit later, Camp Shelby's last report was September of 2019, and the water level was 150.13 feet, compared to 151.3 in 2018. Overall, the water supply there has been trending downwards since the mid-1980s. This ultimately answers one of my initial questions, which is these aquifers are draining and our water supply is slowly but surely dwindling. So with Forrest County obviously being a part of Mississippi, I did do more base research on the state as a whole. So this slide really just touches on what I mentioned earlier about groundwater and surface water, but ties it in relation to southern Mississippi. The state of Mississippi uses about 3.5 billion gallons of water each day through public, private, and government activities. 1/4 of that water used comes from surface water. This refers to resources like lakes and reservoirs. The remaining 3/4 is groundwater, and like I mentioned earlier, it comes from rainfall that has traveled through soil and miles of underground sand deposits to water wells. The first collection of groundwater can be cited back to 700 BC, and the emergence of urban communities sparked a need for the complex systems harnessing rainfall that are present in modern times. Most groundwater is naturally safe for human consumption. However, the groundwater must travel on a lengthy path from the natural source to where water is dispensed, making treatment necessary. Treatment of the water, like I mentioned earlier, eliminates any ground pollution, chemical runoff, sewer runoff, or river contamination that may have occurred between collection and distribution. Alright, so my map. GIS is not my strong suit, so y'all please do not judge my map. I really did my best here. So I focus on the specific suppliers for municipal water distribution in Forrest County. Technically, each state has a specific local municipal water supplier that provides potable water to their surrounding communities. Regarding Forrest County specifically, there are two main water departments that exist to serve a total population of 75,835 people in an area of about 466 square miles. This equates out to a single water department serving around 37,917 people within 232 square miles. Local government websites list about 15 municipal water suppliers within Forrest County. Each of these are mapped by a point, and the points are sized based on how many people they serve. For instance, the one that denotes the city of Hattiesburg is the largest because it serves around 50,160 people, with approximately 25 wells. The 2 points way out by the Jackson are the supplier's home bases, which is why they do not technically lie within Forrest County limits, but they're still suppliers. Finally, we were to talk about where our topics fit into the academic structure of geography. Short and sweet, really this whole project touches on 3 things: research methods, GIS, and ultimately you can file municipal water supplies under urban planning. The first 2 we have gone over ad nauseum throughout undergrad, and there's even been a lot of natural geography sprinkled in. But the mix of all of that with urban planning is relatively new.